parish of Whitikham lies in a valley of green fields, thrust like a javelin deep into the flanks of a brown and purple Dartmoor. There, from ancient grey farmhouses, monumentally hewn from moorland granite, Devon farmers wrest a living from marginal land too damp for corn growing. From scattered farms like these, from a sprawling parish of some 25 square miles, the school bus collects its daily muster of children, bringing them to the village school at Widecombe. The little school has 40 children, 2 teachers. Many of these children have already walked a mile to reach the bus. In the village square, the sexton, born and bred a Dartmoor man, tends his 14th century parish church, the Cathedral of the Moor, a church enriched by the boom wealth of the 16th century moorland tin miners. Across the village green at the 20th century cafes, the waitresses prepare to greet the day's onslaught of cars, coaches, curious sightseers, and tired, aching feet. At the old inn, the landlord sweeps his forecourt and tells visitors that Brandy, his brown and cream St. Bernard, is the most photographed dog in England. Next door, the old village forge is now a gift shop, where each day the souvenirs are put on show, memories of a summer day in Devon. Just outside the village, the lady of the guest house cleans her home, dusting, polishing, brushing and scrubbing in a way most women have almost forgotten, by hand. For picturesque though it is, this is a parish without electricity. As recently as 15 years ago in the southwest, only 2 farms in 10 had electricity. Today, only 2 farms in 10 are without it. Only in the remoter areas, such as here at Widecombe, are there still gaps, and most of these are being closed. This film is a recognition of the accomplishment of this immense task, the story of how one of the more picturesque of these rural areas got its power. To most people, Widecombe is simply a tourist attraction. Round it, the granite tors, like ruined castles, look down in summer on the crowds of holidaymakers. Round every bend in the road is a souvenir for the family album. The moorland rivers, normally lonely in their deep-cut valleys, become a playground for fishermen and ramblers. But this is not the real moor, nor the real Widecombe. The sightseers who throng Widecombe, thousands strong on Widecombe Fair Day, are like birds of passage. They come, they enjoy themselves for the day, and then they're gone, leaving behind no lasting impression on the essential life of the parish or its landscape. When the celebrations are over, and the last coach is gone, and the cafes are closed for the winter, and the shutters have gone up on the gift shops, then the moor takes Widecombe back to itself. Country dwellers in these more inaccessible areas have often wondered why they've had to wait so long for electricity. The answer is that within the limitations of a given amount of money, each electricity board has to reach the greatest number of people. It is this which decides priorities. To find out in which localities prospective development is financially most feasible, each area is canvassed. The canvassers are sales representatives. canvasser's job is to visit everyone in the area and find out what kind of electrical appliances, agricultural or domestic, they are likely to use. In the case of farms, he helps the farmer estimate what proportion of the capital cost he will have to pay. This amount is based on farm acreages and can be paid in installments over a number of years. The results of all these interviews are collated and analysed, and on them is based the future programme of development. Once an area is to be developed, planning engineers plot a possible route and go over the ground to see if it is practicable and inconspicuous. The next stage is to gain the consent of the landowner or occupier across whose property the line may go. This consent is termed a wayleave, and the man whose job it is to obtain it is the wayleave officer. A good wayleave officer has at his fingertips current land values, crop prices and tree values. He must be well versed in the relevant Acts of Parliament and wayleave regulations. He must know how to settle claims, decide compensation, agree on payments and keep records. He must possess unlimited patience and inexhaustible tact. The closest cooperation is maintained with the county planning officer, the rural councils and the National Parks Committee. Subject to this planning approval, the final instrument survey of the line is carried out. This decides the precise routing of the line. From this survey, draftsmen prepare a profile of the line, showing the ups and downs of the ground over which the line will run, and recording the nature of the ground, whether arable, pasture or wooded. The draftsmen use this profile to decide exact details, height of poles, their diameter, types of crossarm, and sizes of stay to guarantee the line against wind pressure, sag or icing. If everything is satisfactory, schedules of materials are drawn up and the construction of the line is approved and authorized. After months or even years of planning, the line is at last to become a reality. Without such planning, there would be inefficiency and waste. The line to Widecombe was a stage in an eventual through line linking Buckfast-Lee to Moreton Hampstead. The existing stage of the line ended at the village of Holme. From here, the Whitikham line was to cross the valley of the Dart to Aish Tor. Then it was to go, by way of Poundsgate and Ponsworthy, to the valley of the Webburn, and so to Widecombe, throwing out spurs to outlying areas. Just beyond Widecombe, the line would terminate, but in such a way that on some future date, it can be extended across the moor. The engineer's first problem was to get the line across the valley of the Dart. The river itself is not deep, but its valley is steep-sided and heavily timbered. It's a beautiful river, and it was decided to cross it at a point normally inaccessible to tourists, where the minimum of tree felling would be necessary. The power line was to be strung across the whole valley in a single span of 1,000 feet. Various ideas were suggested for getting the conductor across, but in the end it was unreeled in a drenching Dartmoor drizzle by the oldest and simplest method of them all. Once over the Dart, the line crosses the open country of Aish Tor. To avoid the ugliness of poles and cables breaking the moorland skyline, this section of the line was laid underground. But putting this kind of line underground costs 6 times more than overhead. Only in such special sections of the route can the heavy extra cost be justified. Beyond Aish Tor, the route goes overhead again, and pole erection becomes the order of the day. From a central distribution store at Taunton, poles of the required length and diameter come by articulated lorry, negotiating with care the narrow roads and steep gradients of the moor. The ground is cleared, and at intervals, dumps of poles and materials are made. For the erection of the poles, modern excavating machinery first digs a hole, then normally lifts the pole into position. But so difficult was the terrain of the moor that most of the poles had to be levered into position by hand. On the moor itself, the soil is not thick, and the bedrock granite never far below. In such cases, blasting was the only method of excavation. Once up, the pole is turned into the required line. Thus, mile by mile, the line went up, adding a new feature to the landscape, yet one designed to merge as inconspicuously as possible. Switches, terminals, transformers, substations, now the spur lines go out to lonely farms and hamlets. And at last, the people of Widecombe parish begin to be convinced that electricity really is on its way. It's the woman of the family who is usually the first to appreciate what electricity can do for her. So the next visit to the nearby market town usually includes a call at the electricity service centre. The original canvas helps the salesmen to estimate a family's requirements. And those of us fortunate enough to have grown up, so to speak, with electricity are apt to forget what a novelty even the most familiar electrical appliances can be, and with what discrimination a housewife needs to make her personal choice. Until now, the line had kept to the higher ground. But beyond the village of Ponsworthy, with its narrow pack-horse bridge, the line descends to the valley of the East Webburn, the valley in which Widecombe itself lies. Into the valley bottom went the line, and into the water and the mud. Even at the best of times, the moor is wet, and this particular summer was not a dry one. The wide valley, or wide combe, from which Widecombe may derive its name, is often waterlogged. Water underfoot, rain overhead. It even rained the day the last pole went up. Altogether, on the whole scheme, 440 poles were erected. Between them stretch 15 miles of high voltage and 2 miles of low voltage line. A mile of the line is underground. The scheme serves 30 farms and more than 100 cottages. 170 separate wayleaves were necessary, and in the course of obtaining wayleave permissions, the wayleave officer was twice bitten by dogs. The sun shone the day the cables were laid in Widecombe itself. They were put underground in order not to spoil the appearance of the village. To avoid inconvenience to tourists, the job was completed in 24 hours. Now, the last few conductors are stretched and bound in, a job done with great care. The line carries 11,000 volts, and in the harsh Dartmoor weather, a failure could cause not only grave inconvenience to the consumers, but hardship to the line maintenance men. Gradually, the network closes. Houses are wired and meters installed. Light points, power points, cooker points go in. The television aerials go up. The terminal substation was sited just outside the village near the church. This is the point from which, in due course, the high voltage line will continue across the moor. For the engineers, the closing of the high voltage fuses on this terminal will seal their 5 months' work, for through them, the line can be energized. On the farm, electricity is a topic in itself, bringing new possibilities in lighting, heating, milling, mixing, grain drying, water pumping, and especially on these moorland dairy farms for milking and pasteurizing. And if the farmer has any special problems, the agricultural advisory officer is always ready to help. The line, begun in April, was completed in September. For the commissioning or energizing of the line, a strict procedure is followed. Yet, it's completed by a very simple act. 3 fuses are fitted to the end of a long fiberglass pole. They're lifted and placed one by one in position. When the last is swung home, the current is through. A few days later, the official ceremony took place in Widecombe Parish Hall. The chairman of the South Western Electricity Board outlined the aims and achievements of their schemes for rural electrification. The local member of the rural district sang a ditty in its honor. and the chairman of the parish council performed the actual switch-on ceremony by pressing the button on a table lamp. The lights in the village came on. Power had come to Widecombe. But this is not the end of the story. Encouraging people to use electricity implies a responsibility to provide the electricity in the amounts required. More power lines mean more consumers. Bigger sales of appliances mean greater consumption. Since 1948, the consumption of electricity in the southwest has increased fourfold. To meet the demand, more generators are needed, more equipment, more lines. The bringing of power to Widecombe is but one chapter in the unending narrative of public service to the community at large.